A crimson-haired demon girl stretches upward in a private moment, while narration hints that a summoned hero received unexpected cheat skills instead. The chapter opens on Sota caught between a demon girl and a beast-eared girl, wondering how his ordinary life turned into this strange outcome. Sota, a 19-year-old college student, grills sausages at his job and prepares to introduce a fresh product to shoppers passing through the store. He pitches the sausages to a customer, describing how they suit rushed mornings. Dinner sides, stir-fries, curry, or a snack paired with drinks. A young boy tastes a sample and calls it tasty, prompting his mother to agree to buy some after Sota's cheerful offer. Two more shoppers overhear the exchange and decide to grab sausages themselves. Thanking Sota as his small sales pitch keeps winning people over. His manager praises the results, noting that sales climb noticeably every time Sota handles the counter during his part-time shifts. Sota credits his old boss for the technique, explaining that a helpful attitude and samples given to children pull parents toward buying. He reveals he switched jobs constantly to gain experience, working pachinko parlors, bakeries, bookstores, arcades, massage parlors, bars, and convenience stores along the way. Coworkers gather to leave after another shift, teasing him for somehow always knowing how to sweet-talk everyone around him without trying. A female coworker mocks him for being terrible with women despite his charm, leaving Sota silently defeated once the shift finally ends. She points out that he clearly wants to speak with girls more comfortably, though Sota insists customers alone never actually make him nervous. She then asks for a favor, saying she needs help from someone who talks as smoothly and confidently as Sota does at work. Leaning close, she asks whether he holds any interest in parallel worlds, and Sota admits he has read a few things about the popular topic. Without warning, she announces that she is sending him to another world he needs to save. Brushing off his stunned and confused questions entirely, she introduces herself as Nostra, the sage of prophecy, telling him to use his abilities fully once he reaches the other world. Sota lands amid shattered rubble inside an unfamiliar hall, dazed and confused before a sharp voice nearby demands his immediate attention. An armored knight looms above him, flanked by dark wolves, and asks bluntly whether Sota counts among the summoned heroes present. The knight raises a weapon and orders him to die, mistaking his silence for confirmation, until Sota desperately shouts that he is not a hero. The knight pauses, questioning how many others arrived, spotting traces of a summoning circle and a man dressed in unfamiliar foreign clothes. Sota scrambles for a way out while panicking, convinced the manager sent him somewhere dangerous, then forces himself to breathe and calm down. The knight questions his strange clothing, and Sota claims it is the current fashion trend from a small coastal country far south. He shifts into full salesman mode, praising his outfit, his breathable sleeves, and claiming the fabric suits the hot southern climate perfectly. The knight wonders aloud whether a hero would even bother speaking with a demon this casually, given how thin and unarmed Sota appears. More armored soldiers surround him, and Sota panics internally, deciding he must hide the truth that he was among those summoned. He claims the real heroes already fled the area, relieved that his quick lie somehow managed to trick the suspicious knight completely. Back at a grand hall, the knight removes her helmet, revealing she has countless questions still waiting to be asked of Sota. She introduces herself as Fafnir, captain of the Demon Lord's dragon unit, catching Sota completely off guard by turning out to be a girl. Fafnir orders her soldiers to take Sota straight to the Demon Lord's castle, and he soon finds himself locked behind cold prison bars. Sota complains that being thrown straight into the castle skips every normal step heroes usually get, like making friends before the final battle. Another prisoner shushes him for being loud, and Sota apologizes before remembering that his work bag came through the portal with him. He digs through the torn bag, finding only a broken phone, a ruined towel, and his wallet since he only carried work essentials. Frustrated, he searches every pocket, wondering desperately if anything inside could actually help him survive this hostile, unfamiliar world. He shakes the bag harder, insisting he deserves some special weapon or ability upon being pulled into a fantasy world. A worn notebook falls out, and Sota stares at it in confusion, unsure why this particular item traveled along with him. The cover reads "Box of the Abyss," and Sota wonders excitedly whether this strange notebook might actually be his hidden special item. He recognizes it instantly as his childhood doodling notebook, filled with imaginary weapons and monsters he used to show off to friends. Confused about its function, he flips through and reads that reciting an item's name aloud will supposedly make it manifest. Cringing at his own old handwriting, he forces himself to shout "DDX Infinite Thermos," embarrassed by how ridiculous the invented name sounds. Aryl Thermos materializes and pours endless water instantly. Though reciting its name drains his energy, leaving him startled by the notebook's genuine power. Storing the thermos again turns out simple. Shoujo realizes, since repeating its name should bring it right back. Fafnir orders him out of the cell, and a room full of unsettling tools makes him wonder if this is actually a torture chamber. When she pulls off her helmet, Shoujo catches himself staring, quietly startled by just how striking her face looks. Horns and a tail aside, nothing about her matches the monstrous helmets worn by every other soldier standing nearby. "What are you looking at?" Fafnir snaps, and his mind goes blank as he mutters that it is nothing at all. Attempting an introduction, Shoujo nearly blurts his full name before catching himself mid-sentence, terrified of exposing his identity as the hero. A ridiculous, overlong fake name spills out instead, though Fafnir shrugs it off and simply decides to call him Shoujo. Asked why he was lingering near the church, Shoujo claims he was only passing through by pure coincidence. "I hate liars," Fafnir counters, revealing her forces attacked that very church once they learned a hero was being summoned there. Suspicion sharpens her stare as she demands to know what exactly he is hiding from her right now. Staying quiet feels risky. Shoujo thinks bracing himself since either answer might cost him his head entirely. Fafnir presses further, asking why he seems so intent on tracking down the hero in the first place. "Heroes," she explains, "count among the natural enemies demons fight without hesitation, since nothing redeems them in her eyes. Dangerous and resentful, according to Fafnir, heroes represent a threat demons simply refuse to tolerate within their lands. Protecting the demon realm now falls squarely on her shoulders," she declares, vowing to strike down any hero before reaching the castle. Hearing this, Shoujo grasps just how deep the hostility runs, growing even more anxious about his secret slipping out. Having given her own explanation, Fafnir turns the question back on him, demanding to know who he truly is. Without missing a beat, Shoujo invents a cover story, calling himself a jack-of-all-trades merchant who collects rare items and monsters. Reciting the notebook's name summons an item on the spot, leaving Fafnir wide-eyed at the sudden burst of magic. Curious, now, she asks what exactly this strange object is, wondering if it might be some kind of grimoire. A strange book rested in Shoujo's hands, and he explained it could reveal someone's age, personality, hidden abilities, and deepest secrets. Fafnir's profile filled the pages, showing a dragon captain fixated on defeating the hero while secretly nursing an embarrassing personal worry. Unable to read the Japanese text, Fafnir grew suspicious and accused Shoujo of carrying nothing but random garbage meant to fool her. Her weapon swung without warning, carving a curse called the Fool's Beheading into his neck, leaving Shoujo frozen in stunned silence. Any lie from this point forward, she warned, would cause that same mark to split his neck open completely. Kneeling before her, sweat dripping down his face, Shoujo braced himself as Fafnir demanded to know exactly who he truly was. Towering above him, she accused Shoujo of being unusually anxious about how his own body's smell might reach other people. Color drained from Fafnir's expression, as she realized he had somehow uncovered the worry she kept hidden from everyone around her. Grinning wide, Shoujo summoned a jar out of thin air, calling it the perfect answer to her unspoken problem. Unk 99 struck Fafnir as a ridiculous name, and Shoujo admitted the label traced back to an embarrassing childhood memory. Fear spilled out of her all at once, sweaty armor, yellow stains, and constant dread that others might notice her scent. Confusion crossed Fafnir's face as she studied the jar, unsure how such a strange cream could ease every one of those worries. Without asking for payment, Shoujo offered the product for free, insisting she only had to place her trust in him. Puzzled by his generosity toward a demon, Fafnir questioned his motives, and Shoujo answered plainly that he was simply a merchant. Customers mattered to him regardless of species, he insisted, and the curse mark on his neck stayed quiet, proving his honesty. Weighing his sincerity, Fafnir studied Shoujo as he stood there, holding the jar, patiently waiting for her final answer. Trusting an unproven item required real evidence, she argued, so she ordered him to test the product on himself. First, Shoujo agreed without hesitation, though Fafnir kept her weapon raised, still guarding against a trust she wasn't ready to give. Instead, she demanded he apply the cream directly onto her, leaving Shoujo flustered and unsure how to respond. Drawing on memories of a massage parlor for composure, Shoujo finally asked where exactly she wanted the cream applied. Fafnir warned Shoujo that touching anywhere else on her body would earn him no forgiveness. Her weapon still raised nearby, nerves shook Shoujo's hands as he admitted he lacked experience touching women even during his various part-time jobs. Fafnir insisted the sensation felt fine, just a bit cold, and told him to keep applying the cream without stopping. Her breath caught as the cream spread further, and she wondered aloud whether this method would truly erase her smell. Gritting his teeth, Shoujo reminded himself this was purely survival, though the act felt deeply inappropriate no matter how he framed it. Fafnir raised her other arm next, instructing him to continue while Sota squeezed his eyes shut, unable to look directly at her. Confusion crossed his face as his hand brushed against something unexpectedly soft, far beyond where he intended to reach. Realization hit hard when Sota understood his fingers had drifted straight onto her chest instead of her underarm. Breathless and flushed, Fafnir asked if he was finally finished while Sota stammered frantic apologies, insisting the whole thing was accidental. Her posture relaxed completely, and Sota noticed her entire demeanor shift once she realized his claims had been genuine all along. Flashing back, Sota recalled adding a note to his own notebook explaining the cream removed odor but temporarily heightened sensitivity. Locked behind bars again, Sota protested he wasn't under suspicion, though Fafnir reminded him he'd still remain confined for a while. She explained they couldn't release him carelessly, since such powerful items might make him a dangerous weapon for humans. Fafnir blamed his own suspicious behavior for the situation, though she promised to guarantee his life despite disliking senseless killing. Before leaving, she thanked him quietly for the item, admitting gratitude even as she turned to walk away. Relief washed over Sota once she left, having narrowly avoided death while Fafnir walked the corridor alone in thought. Elsewhere, guards spotted Fafnir carrying human goods and attacked without warning, screaming that demons deserve nothing but destruction. Back in his cell, Fafnir studied a mysterious favorability gauge tied to Sota, puzzled by his growing influence despite being human. Determined, Sota resolved to use his strongest items and sharpest words to gather allies and eventually find his way home. Sota sat drawing at his desk while a classmate praised his endless imagination, and he silently recalled how much daydreaming defined his elementary years. That admiring girl became his first love, a small and trivial thing built entirely on her constant compliments about his drawing skills. Classmates gossiped about a popular profile book, unaware Sota stood nearby, and one girl casually denied ever liking someone like him. Her cheerful praise had secretly meant his ideas were a dumb waste of time, and that discovery hit Sota harder than expected. She called him an immature boy who only drew dumb pictures, and that rejection left him unable to speak comfortably around women. Heartbroken, Sota created an item called Your Heart Shouts in full view, letting him see people's true thoughts and favorability toward him. He sealed that shameful notebook inside a black box and buried it deep in his closet, calling it a bad memory. Years later, that same notebook, now called Box of the Abyss, somehow followed him into another world after his sudden summoning. Confused about why a goddess needed him, specifically, Sota reopened the notebook, deciding to use it despite the old embarrassment. Locked in a demon lord's dungeon, Sota realized he needed companions and information to eventually find his way back home. A demon girl approached his cell, startled by his sudden movement, and he immediately declared he must raise her favorability rating. That demon Fafnir, captain of the dragon unit, had brought him to the castle and now appeared on his notebook profile. Sota admired her responsible, cute nature, remembering uncomfortably that they had already done something intimate together the previous day. Fafnir's favorability suddenly dropped, and she accused him of scheming something, forcing him to panic and quickly deny the accusation. A magical crest on his neck would slice him apart the moment he spoke any lie or false statement aloud. Struggling to explain himself, Sota admitted he simply wanted to earn his customers' trust, blaming an old fear of women. Fafnir accepted his crest hadn't activated, meaning his stumbling explanation, however awkward, must technically have been the truth. She soon announced the group had decided his punishment, ordering him outside while he knelt nervously with restrained, chained hands. Dragging a massive iron ball across the courtyard, Sota struggled badly while Fafnir scolded him for still not being trusted. She lifted his heavy ball effortlessly, revealing she trained with weights 10 times heavier, leaving him stunned and quietly impressed by her strength. Sota gazed through the barred window, realizing the gloom outside wasn't from the dungeon but stretched across the whole castle. Fafnir explained the demon realm's thick clouds blocked most light, making daytime here look nearly as dark as nighttime. She announced that starting today this room would belong to him, and he would now serve as her servant. After discussing matters with the demon lord, keeping Sota as a servant seemed the perfect solution for watching him closely. Confused about what serving actually meant, Sota learned he would simply help Fafnir with all sorts of everyday tasks and work. Spotting books nearby, Sota grabbed one eagerly, hoping to finally learn something useful about this unfamiliar world he landed in. Flipping through the pages, he found only a strange language and unreadable maps, unable to understand a single written word. Fafnir mentioned Nostra the sage, and Sota froze, recognizing her portrait as the very manager who once summoned him here. Nostra was a whimsical, rarely seen figure whose countless legends included massive magical power and the rare ability to cross worlds. Her famous prophecy declared that a hero would eventually be summoned whenever the world itself fell into deep crisis. Fafnir explained the cathedral where they found him matched that prophecy's summoning location, confirming Nostra truly came from another world. She added that heroes had already fled alongside humans, leaving few soldiers behind, so their attack proved surprisingly easy to win. Standing close together, Sota noticed her long eyelashes and pleasant scent, feeling his entire body tremble from sheer nervousness. He accidentally brushed against her chest, causing Fafnir to gasp before slapping him repeatedly while shouting frantic, embarrassed apologies afterward. She accused him of touching her on purpose, and her favorability score dropped sharply further with every panicked, unconvincing denial. Sota insisted he'd never touch anyone that way, especially not someone as cute as her, trying desperately to calm things down. Furious at being called cute, so casually, Fafnir swung her weapon wildly, accidentally shattering the room's only working lamp. Realizing she wasn't truly angry at him but simply needed light, Sota remembered his notebook held an item made for brightness. Raising the notebook high, he shouted, "Manifest Sunday, Sunday," summoning a glowing sun that startled Fafnir completely in the darkness. He recalled drawing that comforting sun on Mother's Day, designed to keep any space bright regardless of rain, snow, or dungeons. Sota explained the item could brighten any space, even inside the demon realm's thick clouds, and asked what she thought. Fafnir admitted the light felt certainly bright and warm, seeming genuinely pleased with this strange invention Sota had shown her. Standing close to the glow, she confessed she had never been near actual sunlight before, yet felt strangely at peace. She murmured that she couldn't take her eyes off the sun, staring at it with unexpected, dreamy fascination. Watching her babble incoherently and look completely defenseless, Sota wondered why she suddenly seemed a bit too happy. Fafnir recalled a pet shop owner's advice that reptiles sunbathe for health, connecting dragons to reptiles inside her mind. She suddenly asked whether he had been feeling down, listing loss of appetite and lethargy as concerning possible symptoms. Sota admitted the demon lord's castle received barely any sunlight, confirming her theory about his recent lack of exposure. He listed sunlight's countless benefits, from boosting serotonin and immunity to producing vitamin D for healthy bones and teeth. Sweating with excitement, Fafnir assumed this glowing item could function as a stat-boosting tool, and Sota reluctantly agreed. She noted her rising body heat, and Sotor explained increased metabolism, mentioning some cultures sunbathe by removing all clothing. He casually added that doing so worked best while fully naked, and Fafnir immediately began undressing without hesitation. She reasoned it wouldn't be proper appearing before the demon lord looking pitiful, so bare skin seemed the better choice. Determined to improve both physical and mental health, Fafnir demanded he hit her with even more concentrated sunlight. She described feeling warmth spread through her body, insisting the sizzling heat felt wonderful and somehow purified her completely. Though the situation had spiraled into trouble, Sota admitted his body moved on its own. Seeing her this excited, Fafnir asked how the sensation felt, and Sota decided he would simply close his eyes and keep aiming carefully. She guided him toward the base of her tail, insisting he aim the warm light directly there instead. Overwhelmed by sensation, Fafnir begged him to warm her even more, moaning softly as the glowing heat intensified further. Realizing the light no longer reached her, Sota apologized, then declared he needed to properly help this demanding customer, boosting the sun's output. Fafnir soaked in warmth while Sota wondered anxiously what more he could possibly do for her after this session. Fafnir admitted the bed had gotten completely wet from her sweat, and Sota assured her it was perfectly fine. Searching desperately for something absorbent, Sota flipped through his notebook, confident it held the perfect item for this problem. He manifested a water-sucking sponge, promising Fafnir it would soak up every drop of sweat from her damp skin. As he pressed the sponge against her, Fafnir gasped in surprise at the sudden, powerful sensation running through her. Sparkling with delight, she declared her sweat had vanished entirely, amazed by how effective this strange item truly was. Sota collapsed onto the floor, completely drained, while Fafnir called out his name in sudden alarm and confusion. His notebook revealed the sponge was originally meant to hide bedwetting, but its lethal strength could drain moisture from anything. After recovering with a drink, Sota noticed Fafnir's favorability had risen again, feeling like his whole body was revitalized. Struck with inspiration, Fafnir suggested Sota open a shop here, using his abilities to help other demons around the castle. Though intrigued, Sota worried he couldn't gather customers alone, glancing nervously at intimidating demons passing nearby the storeroom. Instead of searching for customers herself, Sota asked Fafnir to show off the items he'd already used to her friends. She agreed, noting she'd technically be his first demon customer, since she herself was originally human before all this. Fafnir promised nothing definite, saying she'd help only if she felt like it. Though Sota thanked her sincerely anyway, she casually announced she'd be heading next door afterward, confusing Sota about what exactly that statement even meant. It turned out Fafnir lived right beside him at the Dragon Unit lodging, warning him not to get strange ideas. Startled by a sudden accident, Fafnir yelped as Sota stumbled and grabbed her chest, sparking immediate embarrassed outrage between them. Their chaos was interrupted when Yujiruru, an energetic animal-eared demon, arrived at the shop asking to play with Sota, too. Then, Sota neatly arranged his merchandise on a straw mat, placing each item with care and hope. With everything in place, he gladly stated his small shop ready for business. Full of hope? Then, a horned woman approached, interested about the unknown goods he displayed, intrigued by their novelty. Then, he showcased a shining stone, calling it a rare forever, shining gem known as diamok. Then he presented a strange fruit Iro I-banana, caution that it changes the eater's face humorously. Sota's optimism collapsed when the demon girl lashed out, calling his merchandise useless trash. Then crushed, he realized all his wares were low-tier, only 1-star items by system standards. Then, with no stronger options, he wondered if selling more could help raise his merchant rank. Before he could reflect more, chaos broke out as a beast abruptly leaped onto the scene. Seconds afterward, a feral girl landed squarely on Sota, leaving him trapped and stunned. Then, following the commotion settled, Sota met the energetic newcomer who presented herself as Yujiruru from the combat unit. She stated her visit was only for fun, leaving the others puzzled by her careless attitude. At once, Sota read her profile, astonished by her lion-like nature, playful hobbies, watching her interact with another demon girl. Sota silently wondered if all demon women were this charming. Before he could think more, Yujiruru bent in near, calling his name with a mischievous grin. Then Yujiruru bent over Sota with a surprising request to play with her. Trying to understand her desire, Sota abruptly got in concept, eager to shift the topic. He'd taken them to the Demon Lord's castle practice grounds, wishing the location would change the mood. As he hesitated, Yujiruru eagerly proposed a match, ignoring Fafnir's protests about him needing to work. She proposed a game if Sota escaped her for 10 minutes. She'd purchase his goods yet if caught. Sota asked if he could use one extra item for the game, wishing for a small advantage. Even with warnings that Yujiruru wouldn't go easy, he accepted the challenge with excitement and determination. He acknowledged his real motive, wanting to bond more with demons beyond just selling. Before the match, Fafnir urged caution, reminding him that Yujiruru never restrains herself in a fight. While the countdown started, both contestants squared off, smiling in anticipation of the challenge ahead. Just as Sota remained quietly, Yujiruru launched at him with blazing speed and confidence. Then, responding instantly, he dodged, surprising everyone with his sudden display of agility. Then, using his unique gear, Sota dashed across the field faster than anyone imagined from a human. The shoes, created from envy of fast kids, shifted ordinary travel into lightning-speed journeys. Understanding this was his chance, Sota treated the match as a real-time product demonstration to prove his worth. Then, Yujiruru frowned at Sota's story, taking it as a challenge to her speed. Driven by pride, she lunged ahead, intent to prove she was the fastest. Sota narrowly evaded her attack, understanding just how near he was to being caught. Seeing her increase her pace, he freaked, knowing he had to drive his gear harder. But accelerating too far, Sota lost his balance and crashed headfirst into an unseen obstacle. Then, Sota accidentally crashed headfirst into Fafnir, causing an uncomfortable and awkward scene, trying to get up. He worsened things, drawing a stunned response from her. Then Yujiruru witnessed everything and angrily declared Fafnir's chest belonged to her alone. Using the distraction, Sota rapidly made a dash to regain distance, yet his legs failed, strained by the gear, leaving him breathless and unable to run. While adjusting his gear settings, Sota was abruptly surprised from behind. With an assured smile, Yujiruru announced her win and reached out to end the game. At once, he stared with disbelief, exhausted from all the effort he'd put into dodging her. At once, surprisingly, she hadn't tagged him, wanting to extend the fun instead of ending it properly. At once, smirking, she hinted at hidden meaning behind being her chosen playmate. Yujiruru hinted at a warped kind of fun that sounded closer to torment than play. Then, her excitement only grew, declaring that tag was only the beginning while admiring his frightened response. Sighs shaky. She grinned broadly and promised to show him something much more exciting. Understanding getting away was impossible at this rate, Sota forced a smile and suddenly said a frantic sales pitch. Before the words could purchase time, she pounced, pinning him to the ground and claiming she recognized his bluff. Tapping her finger along his chest, Yugururu spoke quietly but ominously, claiming she could learn everything from his eyes. Leaning near, she warned that praise would not save him, brushing off any attempt at manipulation. Then, instead than ending the game, she rose and teased him again, challenging whether he'd run or continue their play. At once, Fafnir observed quietly, recognizing the familiar signs of Yujaru's risky overexcitement. Momentum fully changed. The odd beastkin now eyed Sota with hunger and no restraint. At once, Sota stared at his limited inventory, only the worn-out shoes and a pile of odd. Pressed under Yujaru's weight, he fought to focus as her teasing tone and odd conduct stunned his ideas. Her cat-like tone triggered in concept if lions were cats. Maybe there might be a way to exploit that reaction. There was no time to hesitate. Suspicion filled his mind, but reaction pushed him to act before losing his window, restrained but not beaten. He answered firmly with defiance. With desperation turning into resolve, Sota loudly stated his item demo wasn't over and called the absurd Iro I banana. As expected, the fruit worked immediately, altering his expression into something hilariously grotesque, totally throwing Yugururu off. Using the opening, he manifested the shining Daya mock gem. Then, without doubt, he kicked into fifth gear and sped off using the final burst from his enchanted shoes. At once, Yugururu yelled after him, swearing she could still catch him no matter what he tried. Defiantly grinning, Sota mocked Yugururu, challenging her certainty that she could catch him. Arms lifted like a martial artist. He triggered a strange ability Cat Cafe supervisor skill, claiming she shared feline weaknesses. He quickly carried out his plan, delivering a series of firm, well-aimed slaps to her rear, catching her totally by surprise. At once, with her body pinned and stunned, a startled cry slipped her lips as the odd rhythm took result, making her dazed and breathless. Ugaru collapsed, her energy clearly fading as she answered instinctively to Suda's unorthodox technique. Slow reactions took hold, her posture changed as an instinctive response, and she pleaded weakly, caught among uncertainty and sensation. A sudden increase broke the rhythm. Suda increased intensity, relying on momentum to completely disrupt her resistance. Her body at last failed, leaving her sprawled in a stunned heap. Prior to he could go more, Fafnir snapped him back to reality. Fafnir confronted Sota, her face inches from his, scolding him for taking things too far. Then, embarrassed, he apologized, claiming he'd been too deep in sales service mode to notice. Seeing her real concern, he felt a rush of guilt and comfort. At the same time, Yugururu clung to him, dazed but satisfied, stating how fun the game was. As things settled, an unknown figure quietly watched the chaotic trio from the shadows. An unknown hooded woman quietly observes Sota's circumstances as it draws increasing attention and strain. In the middle of the night, a cloaked figure quietly approached Sota's bed, her expression hard to read under the hood. Shocked by a scream, two horned women hurried in, uncertainty spreading as they saw the chaos within. Sota, stunned with terror, shielded himself with a pillow, begging for his life as the figure bent in. At once, more women appeared, witnessing the bizarre scene. Afterward, at the office, Sota had trouble explaining, unaware of what had occurred the night before. Batty, a timid transport mage, was presented as someone capable of strong teleportation magic, often aiding the squad. Then uncertainty struck when questions arose about why she had been discovered on Sota's bed the night before. At once, under scrutiny, Batty hesitated, unsure how to explain the misunderstanding she caused. In the end, she confessed her secret goal: training to become a true succubus. Ashamed yet determined, Batty showed her crest, the symbol of a full succubus, still inactive. Then, Batty described that her crest would activate only when her desire was fulfilled. Embarrassed, she suddenly said that her wish was to receive a kiss, mistaking it for the required trigger. At once, Sota responded awkwardly, clarifying that he understood what a kiss was, as Batty shyly described it. She acknowledged seeing a succubus's crest glow during a kiss and thought it was the key. Even with her efforts, Batty felt unsure, questioning herself and asking if her failure stemmed from being inexperienced. Then, hesitating as she recalled odd seconds she had witnessed involving Sota. She spoke of seeing him in dubious situations, including groping and playful smacking, which shocked everyone. Batty's words provided her the impact Sota was experiencing, though he immediately insisted those were misunderstandings. Afterwards, Sota read her private profile, learning her deep insecurities and silent resolve to grow stronger. Met with her honesty, he wondered if his own concepts drawn from youth could offer her any genuine help. Sota fought, admitting he lacked any experience dealing with emotional matters or close relationships. Then, her companion urged Sota to give his support and help her grow more assured. Then, behind her hood, Batty quietly withdrew. her once bright expressions becoming more withdrawn with each handing day. Moved by her vanishing smile, Soda made an earnest request, asking for help to help her recover at once. With fresh resolve, he promised to help, offering his support as both an ally and a friend. At once over tea, Soda reflected on Fafnir's surprising warmth and care toward her team. Batty acknowledged her uncertainty, showing she didn't really understand how a kiss worked despite all her effort. Anxiously, she overthought the act angles, motion stunned by minor details that left her feeling lost. Trying to learn, she looked to Fafnir for help, putting the captain under pressure. Embarrassed by the suggestion, Fafnir freaked out at the idea of being used as a demonstration. Fafnir misread Soda's delay, worrying he was repulsed, causing her to angrily confront him. Meanwhile, Batty became embarrassed, apologizing for her uncomfortable request and feeling guilty for creating discomfort. Embarrassed, Sota acknowledged he merely couldn't handle being so near to someone as beautiful as her. Then, trying to reduce the tension, Fafnir insisted it was only for practice and not a real kiss. Pressed by their expectations, Soda uneasily agreed, asking for gentleness as Batty watched with bright hope. With shaking hands, Soda and Fafnir bent in, faces inches apart, hearts racing with anxious strain. A final moment, Fafnir freaked and shoved him aside, yelling that she couldn't follow through. Afterward, the two sat uneasily, exchanging apologies for the awkward circumstances that had unfolded. Then, their slipped attempt became a mutual struggle, with Fafnir pushing Soda to try next. Inspired, Soda realized his problem was shame and resolved to beat it. He shifted to an old concept. Soda proudly revealed a spray bottle labeled Shameless, claiming it could remove embarrassment immediately. With a persuasive tone, he asked if they'd ever lost an opportunity out of terror and regretted it afterward. Then, he described how the formula would calm the brain's shame response, making it easier to act boldly. Both women were strangely convinced, though Fafnir demanded to confirm its effectiveness before trusting it. At once, consulting the book, Soda read aloud the use warning, cautioning to only spray once. Per Dalton Y, while Soda read the note, he realized Fafnir had sprayed well beyond the recommended amount. Now overly bold, she stated her readiness to kiss real or not, while Soda and Batty became alarmed. Disregarding their protests, she rushed ahead, urging a kiss before the result could fade. Then, Soda stiffened under pressure as she challenged his courage, daring him to step up. Suddenly softening, she asked quietly if he really disliked the concept of doing it with her. Fafnir stepped nearer, gripping Soda's shirt, her expression shaking with strain as their moment approached. Batty watched anxiously while Soda tightened his eyes, preparing himself for the kiss that appeared unavoidable. In a sudden turn, Soda pressed her cheeks together, stopping her advance, declaring the circumstances had went too far. Then, with a steady voice, he urged her not to spend her first kiss on someone she didn't love. Blushing, Fafnir's heart jolted. Soda's words left an impact more deeply than expected. Fafnir yelled in frustration, embarrassed by the rush of emotions Soda caused in her. Then, watching quietly, admired Fafnir's uncommon vulnerability, feeling inspired by her open honesty. Moved by impulse, Batty reached for the Shameless spray, wishing it could help her overcome her terror. To everyone's surprise, she sprayed herself repeatedly, causing panic about what might happen to a succubus. Seconds afterward, the room fell silent as Batty broke into tears, stunned and emotionally shaken. Tears poured freely as Batty shouted, stunned by emotions she could not keep down. At once, memories of ridicule and isolation from other succubi resurfaced, alongside her efforts to grow despite them. Then, yelling in frustration, she called herself useless, ashamed of her inexperience and identity. Fafnir moved forward with resolve, acknowledging Batty's struggle but also highlighting the strengths she overlooked. Then, few demons could master teleportation, and yet Batty had done so through hard work, not status. Tears rose again, this time with joy, as Batty yelled her recognition of Fafnir's encouragement. Soft pat on the head broke her emotional flood, quiet words acknowledging her lengthy adventure. Abruptly, her body shook with energy, causing the others to panic as light flared around her. A bright glow spread across her crest, the sign of her growth at last blooming into existence. While Soda realized the actual requirement was fulfilling one's desire, Batty leapt into Fafnir's arms, ecstatic, glowing with pride. Batty thanked them both, holding her staff near with fresh confidence. Soda humbly dismissed the praise, asking her to drop the formal honorifics and speak to him informally. In response, she bent him playfully, calling him Soda Onikan, catching him totally by surprise, waving her staff. She happily wished them good night, her voice brighter than ever. Despite his doubts, Soda's efforts had an impact, and even Fafnir acknowledged his inner strength. Fafnir acknowledged she once believed only Soda's instruments were valuable, yet now, she saw worth in him too. Embarrassed by her own truthfulness, she blamed lingering effects from the spray and marched off to bed. Then, alone in the hall, Soda's heart raced as her tender goodnight echoed behind him. Then, a shining screen appeared. His merchant rank had risen, rewarding his growth in more than trade. Elsewhere, influential figures started growing interested in his odd human inventions. At once, the demon lord relaxed on her throne, amused, and ordered her subordinates to capture Soda instantly. While checking customer responses, Soda notices his merchant skill has advanced, now displaying 2 stars. Then, a notification reveals that increased customer favorability caused the upgrade, leaving him confused. Profiles of 3 women display growing affection rates, which he now realizes are linked to his growth as a merchant. Then, filled with motivation, he celebrates, ready to spread more joy until he smells himself. A colleague invites him to bathe, and he agrees. Soda and the women arrive at a foggy clearing ringed by trees. At once, the group confirms it's a natural thermal spring where they usually bathe. Without doubt, she starts undressing, catching Soda totally by surprise as she prepares to enter the water. At once, while one girl hesitates, embarrassed by Soda's presence, another drags her toward the spring, pushing her to join in. Embarrassed, she stumbles over her words. Her friend rapidly teases her, understanding she's overly aware of Soda being nearby. Fafnir tries to deny her delay, yet her friend quickly sees through her nervousness and teases her. Teasingly, she highlights Fafnir's status, joking that even a dragon unit leader worries a shared bath with a human. Meanwhile, Soda hides behind the trees, embarrassed and puzzled by the demon customs. Eventually, Fafnir and her friends step out, half-dressed, catching Soda totally by surprise. At once, blushing, he's pulled toward the bath while protesting as both women insist he undress too. Soaking in the hot spring, the women relax as steam drifts softly around them, enjoying the heat without a word. Soda sits nearby, still baffled by the circumstances, relieved only by the cloudy water concealing more than it reveals. At once, struggling with where to look, he avoids eye contact while the others chat casually and request something fun for the bath. One girl becomes playful, moving a little closer with a mischievous smile. At once, searching for a distraction, Soda opens his item book. At once, Soda activates one of his merchant items, summoning a small figure called Baby Bubbles into his hand. He eagerly explains its benefits: restorative bubbles that cleanse the body and lift the attitude, while the women examine it curiously. Right away, they begin using it in the bath, catching Soda totally by surprise. Then, stunned, Fafnir asks for space as things get a little too personal. Angrily embarrassed, she walks off angrily, blaming the item for making her feel like a child. Then, while tensions rise, Soda attempts to calm Fafnir, assuring her everything is fine while recalling how he used to handle kids. Then, his bubble technique impresses her, and she eagerly asks to learn it. Then, the other girl joins in, seeking attention too, overwhelming Soda as he reflects on the chaos caused by one item at once. Abruptly, tears flow and he is blamed for upsetting her despite doing nothing wrong. Thinking quickly, Soda transforms into a bubble monster, changing the mood with playful spirit. Soda's playful transformation succeeds, amusing the women and easing the previous strain. Still lost in the moment, he begins styling his hair with bubbles but rapidly reminds himself to remain sensible. One of the women grabs him excitedly, suggesting they look around nearby, ignoring the fact they're still undressed. Prior to he can respond, Fafnir drags him back, declaring her story to his time. Then, the women bicker over who gets to be with Soda first, each clinging to him tightly. Soda is trapped among the 2 women as they bicker over time slots, while he panics inwardly. As their nearness intensifies, he becomes acutely aware of the circumstances and physical contact. His thoughts race, stunned by the experience, uncertain how lengthy he can hold on. Both women lean nearer, posing the unanswerable question: who will he choose to play with? Feeling dizzy, Soda has trouble focusing, unsure if it's the heat, the bubbles, or both. Then, Soda notices the women have gone quiet and senses something is wrong. Abruptly, both women collapse from the heat in the bath, alarming him. Then, alarmed and helpless, Soda floats beside Baby Bubbles, quietly wishing he had bathed alone instead. In a world split between humans and demons, the demon realm flourished under its own command. Fafnir, the formidable captain of the dragon unit, started her morning with intense training, driving herself to her limit. Refreshed and lively, she finished her training and praised the tool that boosted her strength. Then, relaxing afterward, the heat eased her into comfort, resisting the urge to move. Then, abruptly, urgent news came: humans were invading the eastern forest. A uncommon magical beast stood cautious, its legs shackled, as coaxing words tried to steady it. Nearby, a group of hunters calmly discussed their successful catch until a tone broke, furious and rapidly approaching. Fafnir appeared, armored and determined, surprising the hunters, who realized too late they met a demon fighter. Without doubt, she launched into action, taking down the offenders with immense force. Checking the aftermath, she confirmed the danger was eliminated, her task in the forest complete. Caged magical beasts waited for release, victims of human trade for profit in distant lands. Examining a map, Fafnir remarked the rising pattern of human incursions, troubled by the increasing frequency. Despite their poor appearance, she asked why such reckless men would risk hunting deadly beasts. Then, a masked figure ran deeper into the forest, making Fafnir and her unit into pursuit. Abruptly, an unknown figure appeared, unimpressed by the skirmish and already growing bored. Ugaru proudly displayed her fresh shoes, boasting unrivaled speed and holding a captive without effort. With prisoners gathered, she asked their fate while Fafnir's presence loomed with strict quiet. Then, one man pleaded for mercy, claiming a family while Ugaru dismissed his plea with harsh words. Then, Fafnir intervened quietly, urging restraint and showing mercy for now. They decided to leave the humans beyond the forest fainted, knowing the risk they might exchange. With a steady voice and intimidating presence, Fafnir delivered her last warning, leaving no room for suspicion. Afterward, she called to Batty and assigned her to escort the captured humans beyond the forest. A magic circle glowed beneath them, drawing gasps from the puzzled captives. Before they disappeared, Fafnir's severe gaze told them of the penalties of exchange. They reappeared beyond the forest, shocked but relieved they had been saved. Batty earned praise for her stronger magic, now able to teleport targets well beyond before. Then, she described her boost came after becoming a full-fledged succubus, amazing her comrades. Laughter spread around them as Fafnir joked her about the previous, recalling softer times. With their task over, the group consented it was time to go home and eat. Again at the castle, Fafnir returned to paperwork, still longing for a real break. Fafnir abruptly remembered the ointment she'd forgotten to apply after her intense training. She moved carefully spreading it across her body, making sure no area was missed. As doing so, memories returned of the first time she'd received this item, and the strange sensation it brought. Then, recalling Soda's presence, her mind remained on the clear impression his hands left. Although distant at first, her feelings toward him had obviously changed into something more complex. At once, Fafnir reflected on how her view of Soda changed as she witnessed his sincere efforts for demonkind. Despite his generosity, doubt still remained. Could she really accept his support without doubt? Overcome by emotion, she fought to process the vulnerability growing within her. Just as she calmed herself, a knock pulled her to the present. Then, at the door remained MEP, the Demon Lord's aide, bearing informal summons for Suda. At once, Soda was stunned when informed that both he and Fafnir were called by the Demon Lord. Then they walked the great halls under Mep's lead, tension rising with every step. Prior to them remained their biggest challenge, yet the ruler of the castle. Then, Soda and his companions remained before the huge doors of the Demon Lord's castle, now unlocked with uneasy expressions. They stepped into the audience chamber, guided by the demon woman at their side. At the distant end, the Demon Lord awaited, seated on her throne, watching their approach without a word. The air grew tense, as Soda met her eyes, sensing immense pressure. Then, although she remained seated, her presence alone radiated power that shook even Soda's steady resolve. Stated as the absolute ruler of demons, the Demon Lord lifted her hand with authoritative presence. All at once, she bent over a bucket and vomited, leaving Soda stunned by the surprising sight. Scolded by her subordinates, she dismissed their concern with clear irritation despite her clear hangover. Seconds previous, she had carelessly drank low-quality liquor, yelling that it was fit for drinking. Now crouching, Soda was officially introduced to the Demon Lord as a detained merchant from Earth. At once, Soda read the Demon Lord's name aloud from the book as she clutched her pounding head in pain. Then, looking around at the messy scene, he realized his previous fear was misplaced. She was obsessed with alcohol. Despite her previous conduct, she addressed Sota with poise, acknowledging his odd wares from the warm region. At once, relaxing, Sota expressed gratitude for the decent treatment he'd received, even as a captive, with curiosity sparked. The Demon Lord asked for a demonstration. Then, interested, the Demon Lord sampled one of Soda's products, mistaking a strange fruit for something edible. To her pleasure, it matched unexpectedly well with her favorite drink, fueling her amusement. Despite Soda's protests, the item's side effect appeared awkward everyone while she stayed carefree. Her silliness masked enormous power. She could easily dispel the fruit's effects whenever she wished. Impressed by the novelty, she acknowledged she hadn't encountered such items in hundreds of years. Then, the Demon Lord showed suspicion, baffled by how Soda could produce so many unknown items. Her light tone became sharp as she demanded the facts about his origins, catching him off guard. Cornered, Soda attempted to keep to his original story, fearing she had been playing him all along. A sudden hex triggered, binding him and making total honesty with painful force. Panic took hold if his identity as a called hero were exposed. Death seemed certain. At once the demon lord watched Soda's silence with interest, sensing there was something he dared not reveal. Then, kneeling deeply, he confessed that disclosing his origins might lead to his death. Suddenly, he countered with a daring suggestion, offering to place a wager with her instead. Then, calling on his merchant skill, Soda invoked an item with confidence. A advanced GameCube appeared, leaving the audience chamber stunned by his gamble. Then, Sota enthusiastically explained the game rules, presenting a cube-shaped challenge centered on balance and movement. He lifted the stakes, offering any item or private if the demon lord won yet nothing. If she lost, at once, with a assured tone, he urged her to accept the challenge, placing his fate on the line. Although shaking within, he saw gambling as his only way out of danger. Amused, the demon lord agreed eagerly, intrigued by his bold offer. Then, the demon lord bent forward, astonished that anyone would dare make a bet with her. With a smile, she accepted the match, recalling someone others who had once challenged her. To Soda's surprise, she assigned Fafnir to participate, with no intention to join the game herself. Then, laughing, she cheered from the side, drink in hand, leaving Sota embarrassed. Fafnir stated the match important, cautioned she wouldn't go easy on him. A set of odd rules governed the cube-shaped game, asking players come color limb prompts to win. From her throne, the demon lord announced the next move, right hand, read with steady authority. Fafnir reacted at once, contorting her body to comply. Much to Soda's increasing unease, moisture clung to her skin, her concentrated expression and athletic glow making the atmosphere uncomfortable. Embarrassed, Soda blushed deeply, taken by surprise by the unexpected strain of the game. Sota returned his focus, intent not to let distractions ruin his focus during the match. Boldly, he accepted the next challenge, even as the demon lord believed he'd hit his limit. Then with a shout, he launched his foot ahead, surprising Fafnir with his abrupt energy. Bending into an unlikely position, he held his stance with surprising flexibility. At once, while Fafnir recoiled at his odd posture, Sota proudly repeated yoga tips mid-game. Then, Fafnir realized too late that Soda's odd pose was part of a planned strategy. Gritting her jaw, she would not surrender and swore to fight until the end. With fresh determination, she executed an impressive airborne move, yelling her resolve mid-room. Then, unfortunately for Soda, her closeness made it impossible to avoid an uncomfortable view. Both froze, stunned by strain neither had expected in such a ridiculous game. From her throne, the demon lord joked Soda with a teasing comment, causing chaos among him and Fafnir. Embarrassed, Fafnir responded on instinct, slipping nearer in the tight game area. Caught in a cramped position, both fought to keep balance as the pressure escalated. Fafnir strained to keep her grow, the uncomfortable closeness clearly affecting them both. Fatigue appeared as she shook, unsure how much longer she could hold her stance. As Soda barely came the next move, he gasped in comfort, just avoiding collapse. Then, embarrassed and breathless, scolded him harshly for the compromising circumstances. Before they could recover, the game abruptly triggered a surprise rule shift. Flee now meant victory. Both contestants froze, understanding the situation had changed dramatically under their feet. At once, a flashback showed Soda had modified the game to be chaotic, unpredictable, and far more intense than expected. Then, and surprise trap was triggered, surrounding Soda and Fafnir with wriggling enchanted cords from the GameCube. Freaked, they realized the result came from a special circle making them react fast. Prior to either could flee, the cords seized them, binding both players tightly in place. Restricted together, they uneasily collided, trying to keep distance while stuck face to face. At the same time, the demon lord watched in amusement, delighting in the chaos her game had unleashed. Trapped and tangled beside the girl, Soda struggles to contain his growing embarrassment as ideas threaten his attention. A quick idea appears. He recalls a mental focus technique and swiftly activates the yoga instructor skill. With a serene figure manifesting, Soda changes his mindset, blocking out distractions while the girl watches with disbelief. Then, he continues quietly, preaching awareness and clarity, undisturbed by the chaos surrounding them. At once, to their surprise, the binding tentacles relax, responding to the depth of his tranquil meditation. Fafnir struggles against the binding tentacles, resolved to break free through raw strengths. Soda quietly encourages her, explaining that real release comes not from resistance but from inner calm. While she copies his meditation, her body relaxes, and the aura of tranquility begins to surround them both. Suddenly, the tentacles let go, retreating as if reacting to their inner peace. At once, sitting amid the loosened coils, Soda calmly admits he understood the trick all along. Sota notes that she could have slipped alone, leaving victory within her understand. Her frustration erupts as she reveals the meaning behind the battle and questions his intentions. At once, memories return. He recalls seeing her struggle while both were trapped, unable to ignore it. With a sheepish smile, he admits he merely could not leave her in that moment. Startled and touched, she reaches out to him, quietly recognizing his choice. Sota grasps her hand as she urges him ahead, prepared to leave the room behind. Together, they step into the open, not knowing they are watched by an unknown figure. At once amused, the observer notes Sota's actions, intrigued by his unusual approach. As the contest ended, Sota and Fafnir walked from the field, drawing the attention of the demon noblewoman. At once approaching the throne, Sota carefully mentioned the bet's result to their surprise. She said the winner had already been intent, leaving the pair briefly speechless. A mid-game rule revision had changed the win condition. Escaping the box now meant winning, and Fafnir had done so first. Though she attempted to object, the ruling was final. Crouching on the floor, Sota met the demon noblewoman as she addressed him straight. She bent forward with piercing intensity, asking for a full explanation, every detail without exception. Showing he was a called enemy of demons might decide his fate. At once, fear and anger built within him as he recalled being forced into this world and manipulated by his superior. Unable to restrain himself, he yelled the name of the one responsible, Nostra, his tone full of resentment and anger. Sota's words surprised the demon lady. Both she and her assistant stiffened as they processed what he had just said, grabbing him in surprise. She demanded clarification. Sota, thrown off balance, described he was brought by a superior Nostra. At once, the moment she heard the name, her expression changed. Then, in another room, her frustration flared up during a chess game. Despite repeated failure, she would not quit, her resolve burned, undeterred by the other players' taunting. Then Nostra's name brought fresh energy in the demon lady as she challenged her rival to another chess match. At once, with wine in hand, the demoness listened as Nostra proposed lifting the stakes. Smiling slyly, Nostra proposed a bet, lifting a chess piece as though challenging her. Meanwhile, Sota spotted the demon noble's attitude had completely changed upon hearing Nostra's name. She at last showed the cause Nostra was her sole friend, though unlike most humans, they were restricted by a deeper bond. At once, Sota sat quietly as the demon noblewoman acknowledged Nostra's role in bringing him. With sudden understanding, she identified him as the called hero predicted by Nostra, shocking everyone in the room. Memories of devastation caused by previous heroes resurface before anyone could move rashly. Meph appeared quietly behind Sota, holding her weapon near his throat. Thou ready to strike? Meph was stopped. She insisted heroes were foes, but the noblewoman voiced her disagreement. Then, the demon noblewoman referenced Nostra's message, clarifying that heroes were not meant to destroy demons, only to protect the world from danger. She recalled how fear drove humans to attack first, and how over time, aggression toward heroes became an accepted tradition. Despite that history, she held firm in her belief, unwilling to come mindless prejudice. At once. Since Nostra entrusted Sota to her, she accepted him without hesitation. With the tension faded, Sota breathed in relief as apologies were offered for the rough welcome. When asked what message Nostra left him, Sota hesitated. He recalled her unclear final words and her bad habit of leaving things unexplained. At once, the demon noblewoman warned that the summoning of a hero signaled an approaching crisis. Sota remained without a word, unsure of how to respond. They urged him not to choose too quickly. As he left, they advised him to exchange only once he discovered his reply. Then, although exhausted, he was relieved everything had ended calmly for now. After a lengthy day, Sota suggested heading again. Fafnir tensed at his voice, taken by surprise by the moment. She uneasily excused herself, muttering gratitude before hurrying back toward her room. Left behind, Sota wondered about her feelings toward heroes. Her previous certainty finally made sense. Avoiding him was easier. Afterward in bed, Sota tried to rest, yet his thoughts kept racing. Met with impossible options, he asked whether rescuing the world was even possible. Unable to sleep, Sota rose in frustration. The night was deep, but his mind was too active. Then elsewhere, Fafnir remained alone on the balcony, her expression filled with silent conflict. She murmured doubts about Sota's identity as a hero, although the demon lord confirmed it. Uncertainty filled her heart. A tone ended the silence. Sota appeared suddenly, surprising her with his abrupt presence. Both remained uneasily, uncertain how to face each other after the strain previous that day. Sota and Fafnir remained uneasily under the night sky, both fumbling to break the quiet with anxious words. As their conversation eased, Sota shared how stargazing once calmed him. Interested, she looked upward, asking what stars might really look like from this world. Abruptly, Sota brightened with an idea and hurried to find something in his possessions. With flair, he called a odd magical object, happily yelling its name into the night room. Then, Soda launched his weather, clearing item and creation he once used to ensure sunny times during school trips. With a bright burst, the Teru Teru bomber exploded in light, breaking apart the clouds across the sky. Then, Fafnir watched in wonder. What seemed like a toy had just changed the weather itself. It was stunning. The sky before cleared, showing a stunning night full of stars. Then, stunned. They smiled together. It was a sky neither had ever seen before, brilliant and memorable. Soda smiled softly, relieved that Fafnir had at last seen the stars. Her expression softened with quiet emotion. While the sky sparkled before them, she questioned what he planned to do now. As a hero, the question felt heavy. Both the demon realm and human world needed rescuing. He could not choose yet. Scratching his head, Soda uneasily admitted he still was unsure what path to take. Fafnir, frustrated, told him he was the hero Nostra had chosen and wanted more than hesitation. Acknowledged there was one point she knew for sure, despite everything still being unclear then. She hoped to do her best for everyone she cared about, no matter what the future brought. At once, Soda reflected on how rewarding it felt to help others. He never imagined a job could be this rewarding. Then, smiling, he stated his decision to keep working at the Demon Castle and help in his own way. Then, although their paths might clash someday, both silently accepted that, under the starlit sky, at once, uncertain of the future, Soda and Fafnir both chose to face it without hesitation. Hearts open. Hopeful in tone, Fafnir stated her belief in a world where humans and demons could live together. Touched by her words, Soda stepped nearer. A silent moment passed among them under the stars. Then, the curse around Soda's throat broken. Her trust had become his strength at once. And as Fafnir smiled warmly, Soda thought it was the most beautiful sight he'd ever seen. Soda remained stunned as panic erupted. Shouts rang out, asking help as urgency filled the room. He stepped nearer, understanding someone was badly wounded. Blood poured as others tried to stop it. At once, Fafnir lay wounded. Their shared future now felt terribly uncertain. A female fighter fell during battle, coughing up blood, her body supported by a comrade. Soda freaked, unable to understand how things became so severe. Healing spells and potions could not stop the bleeding. Another girl, furious over the attack, would not stand idle. Grief became defiance as she readied herself to retaliate. Then, Soda stopped her, desperately calling her name and stretching out to restrain her. He insisted on answers, confronting her straight about the incident. Her silence showed guilt. Yuguru described that poachers had been seen in the forest the previous night, causing a quick response. Then, surprisingly, the intruders were the same group they had released before, creating questions about their motives. Then, a member suggested leaving the intruders to the forest dangers, yet Yuguru questioned the idea. The group decided to escort the poachers again safely, despite protests. Soda offered a hopeful view, suggesting that handling the circumstances carefully could have far-reaching consequences. Then, a masked attacker rushed at the group with a knife. One of the warriors kicked the attacker hard, sending him sprawling. Panic erupted among the captured intruders. Her companions, proving that injuries were small, relief eased the immediate tension. Soda spotted the blood on his hands and realized something was very wrong with the circumstances. Faf collapsed, clutching her head. Concerned allies gathered around as uncertainty and worry spread through the clearing. Then, the group stiffened as they discovered Faf's snapped horn on the ground. Fainted, her body weak and exposed, allies hurried to her side. Trying to assess the circumstances, Soda looked on in horror, struggling to comprehend the abrupt turn of events. The scene seemed impossible. Yuguru analyzed the injury, understanding that even a minor cut from the knife had incapacitated Faf. Then, the medics described that healing, magic, and potions were ineffective, leaving Faf in grave condition. Then Demon Lord inspected a dark curved blade, recognizing its special power instantly. Then, ingredients from their realm and curses infused the knife, enabling it to absorb magic and ravage the body of any demon it struck. Suta and his companions recognized that Faf might not survive. Guilt pressed heavily on one companion, who blamed own mistakes for the injury and feared being responsible for the outcome. Reflections showed that if the Guardian had stayed alert, the wound could have been prevented. Then panic overwhelmed one of the warriors, who blamed themselves for Faf's critical state. Then Soda discovered an energy drink labeled Mountain Genki Gorilla and quickly grabbed it, wishing it might help. The Demon Lord asked for a plan, but Soda admitted he was unsure, relying on Faf's trust despite being human. Then, intent, he vowed to try every available item to assist her, unwilling to betray her confidence. Another companion begged to help as well, insisting on joining the effort even though Faf was already badly wounded. Resolve rose as one companion refused to give up, inspired by Faf's steady belief in them. Faf observed quietly, her expression hard to read, while Sota and the others stepped closer to assist. A calm conversation unfolded, showing shared trust and a willingness to keep work apart from personal feelings, at once acknowledging the judgment of character and showing faith in Sota's intentions. Pain and injury continued, but Sota kept working alongside allies, intent to help Faf recover despite the challenge, causing Sota and another companion to fight to keep her still. Pain and strength collided in the strained scene. Both warriors yelled to maintain their hold, understanding that restraining her required all their effort. The smaller companion climbed over Faf, managing to limit her movement despite her resistance. Resolve and teamwork prevailed as they united, promising to save Faf together. Observers doubted the possibility of achievement, while Sota and allies triggered their abilities, giving everything to her rescue. Then Sota yelled manifest as resolve burned in his eyes. The demon lord and companions concentrated on finding anyone with knowledge of medicinal herbs or curse removal magic working against time. Then desperation drove Sota to search through every item. Searching for something that could help, an odd reaction rose from Faf's hand, surprising everyone and raising the urgency of the moment. Companions shouted for Faf to hold on, urging her to recover control as Sota and others fought to stabilize her condition. Sota's tone echoed with desperation as he begged to save Fafnir, questioning the limits of his ability. An unexpected notification showed his merchant rank had increased, leaving him bewildered by the surprising increase. Then, several alerts confirmed the rise in merchant abilities, filling Sota with a sense of fresh potential. The gathered allies cheered, supporting him as hope rose through the strained atmosphere. Then, even the Demon Lord watched in surprise, recognizing that humans had almost prevented Fafnir's life from ending. Demon Lord recognized Sota's courage, stating readiness to gamble on his abilities as he prepared to act. Message confirmed that requirements were met, surprising Sota, as he watched an enigmatic box activate. A secret skill unlocked within the Box of the Abyss, showing special abilities that could change the outcome. Faf smiled weakly, envisioning a future where humans and other species could live together in peace. Then, Sota concentrated on the moment, resolved to see that future realized alongside Faf. He triggered the Box of the Abyss, selecting yes to summon Nostra, preparing to use its secret power to aid in Fafnir's grave condition. Resolve rose within him, creating a clear way forward as allies watched, wishing the action would change the outcome.